With the UK general elections only a few months away and UKIP rising in the polls, a British exit from the European Union seems more and more realistic. At a recent Black Coffee Morning event at our London offices, we held a discussion, to Brexit or not to Brexit, that brought together 3 authors of recent and upcoming reports on a possible British exit from the EU. Many believe that the reasons behind the increase of voters for populist parties such as UKIP are a lack of information and clarity on the consequences of a possible exit, and not enough explanation of possible alternatives.
And there is no simple alternative. You see, UKIP and the people who are in favour of us coming out of Europe are basically arguing that we can keep all the benefits of EU membership. We can keep the trade, we can keep the cooperation with our European neighbours without being members of this dreadful thing, the European Union. And we've actually got to demonstrate that this isn't the case, that actually the alternatives are, broadly speaking, staying in something called the European Economic Area, where there's as much surrender of sovereignty as there would be if we were members of the EU. We'd have to pay into the budget, we'd have to accept free movement of labour, we'd have to accept all the EU rules, the only difference being we wouldn't have any say over them. And the other alternative is that we would be completely out, and that we would face very considerable trade barriers, and which would be very damaging to the prospects of inward investment, particularly by foreign firms in Britain. So I think we've got to explain what the alternatives are better than we've done.
There has also been criticism that there have not been enough constructive suggestions by politicians about the future of the EU. To some, the cause of the confusion lies in the EU's general approach.
Right now, our policy across the Eurozone as a whole has been governed by what the Germans call Ordoliberalismus. That is to say, a classic John Maynard Keynes thinking that you have to balance budgets, the gold standard was a very good idea. And as a result, when economies fall into depression, as they have since the financial crisis, if you then reinforce that by insisting on balanced budgets, insisting there can't be counter-cyclical spending, then of course unemployment increases. Look at Germany itself. Unemployment now has just got over the 3 million mark, and Germany is the export machine of Europe, but it can't export to consumers who haven't got any money or aren't at work, or pensioners who are seeing their pensions being cut. So in a sense there needs, I think, to be some rethinking. It's not just Germany, it's other economies in Europe, and we haven't come up with a concerted response to the crisis. I hope with the quantitative easing, the change of approach from Mr. Draghi and the European Central Bank, that will go in the right direction, but we also have to solve this dreadful Greek crisis.
The discussion also focused on the likelihood of an exit and what implications the outcome of the elections would have on Britain's EU policy in general.
Well, I'm not going to put a number on it, but I think that there is a possibility that we are, as it were, sleepwalking towards exit without really realising it, and we've got to be aware of the dangers.
A huge burning topic in this country, but elsewhere in the EU as well, is immigration. That is to say, the arrival of scores of thousands, hundreds of thousands of fellow European citizens from poorer countries coming to work here, and in Germany and France and elsewhere. And so people might say, I'll vote in order to stop immigration. How do I do that? I take my country out of the EU so we don't have to have free movement. There are any number of issues that can be muddled up, but also depends on the status and popularity of the political leader at the time. If it's Mr. Cameron, because he's the only one who wants a referendum, in 2017 he will have been in the job for 7 years. He's not that popular. If he wins, it'll prove he's more popular than Mr. Miliband for sure, but he's not a commanding, strong figure. There'll be all sorts of reasons. We're a very nervous Europe at the moment. We want to pull the duvet cover over our heads and pretend the rest of the world isn't there. So when you get a chance to vote for that by huddling into your bed and cutting loose from Europe, perhaps people will take it.
can find a full audio recording of the event, to Brexit or not to Brexit, and information on upcoming events at ecfr.eu/events. And a policy brief on the issue by ECFR Director Mark Leonard is coming out soon.